Okay. And I will share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you all are seeing my demo. Put this over here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
All right. Let me pull up my notes. Okay, so if you have questions, by all means, unmute yourself, ask, interrupt me, put it in the chat. Both Sandra and Rhonda are on and they will be monitoring the chat. Let me check one thing here first. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk job calendars, we're going to talk new contracts, and salary notices. So we'll start with the job calendars. You need to update these for next school year, and those can be updated by going to Core Job Calendar. Now let me start this section off by saying, do whatever you have to do to make sure that you get all of these updated prior to the next school year. We had a couple of districts this past school year that, for whatever reason, things happen. It's a busy time of year and they actually didn't get all of them updated like they thought they did. And so it messed with their days worked and we had to go in and make a bunch of adjustments. It's fixable, but not super convenient. So if you've got to keep a little checklist of all of your different job calendars and check them off as you know you've updated them, whatever you got to do, because if those of you that lived in Classic land, Classic would actually error out when you tried to initialize a payroll if the calendar hadn't been extended. Redesign doesn't do that. The calendar exists, it's just whether or not there's days on there. So whatever you got to do, keep a checklist, check it 14,000 times, just make sure you get those calendars updated. So there's a few different ways you can do this. We can go into, let's say, this custodian calendar. We can click on the little edit guy and I can come in here and I can say, okay, I need to add dates and I need to add 7/1 of 23 through 6/30 of 24 because that's the next fiscal year their contract is for. Then what you can do is you can say what type of day you want it to be. Well, custodians, they work almost every day. So I'm going to say this is going to be a work day. I'm not going to include weekends because they don't work on weekends, and I'm going to mass update. What this will do is this is going to put a work day on every single weekday in this time period. So now if I go to July, so now I've got work days. Well then, sure, you're going to have holidays and maybe you have some non-work days. So what you do is on those days, if you right click holiday, it'll update it. So it's easiest to add everything as a work day and then go back in and make your updates. So then you can go to, I don't know, maybe this is Labor Day, holiday. You can also, if you had a large period of time, well, I'll show you that on the next one. So you can just kind of go through here and, I don't know, maybe this is, and maybe the Friday after is also a holiday for them. But you get the point. Super easy to just go in here. Maybe this is a non-work day. You say none, and it updates it. And then you can save it. So that's one way to update. And you can do that for everybody or every calendar, or maybe you just do it for one calendar and then you can copy it. Okay, so now let's say my custodian calendar is very similar to my exempt calendar. So I can, once I have my custodian calendar updated, then I can copy it into my exempt calendar. And you do that by you say copy, and I want to copy from custodians, and I want to copy 7/1/23 to 6/30/24, and I want to copy it to my exempt. If I had more, maybe I wanted to also copy it to administrators. I can select those and copy. So now it tells me that they've been copied. And so now if I look at my exempt calendar, now it mimics the same thing as custodians. So now let's say I want to copy the exempt calendar to, and I know maybe some of this isn't super realistic. I'm going to copy it to aides. And I'm going to say, maybe in this case, I'm going to start 8/15 of 24 and go through 5/24 of 24, because that's closer to the aides calendar. So if I copy that, and now if I look at the aide calendar, it didn't copy anything from July because I didn't start it in July. I started it, well, look at that. That didn't work, did it? Surely this works, right? There we go. So then with your aides, you probably have aides, teachers, whatever, maybe the 18th of December through, I don't know, January 3rd. Those are all non-work days. Well, rather than clicking on each one of these and saying non-work day, I can just come in here and say 12/18 of 23 through 1/3 of 24 is not a work day, and mass update it. And it takes all of those work days off rather than having to click on each one. So when you have a large span of time that you need to update, you can do it that way. And then once you have the aide calendar together, or maybe you start with the teacher's calendar and transfer it to the aides. Does that all kind of make sense? You all following me so far?
Yep.
I was going to say, by your silence, I'm going to say yes. Okay.
Yeah, there's no comments either.
I choked
Nothing in
it.
the chat.
Sorry. Okay. So then what you want to do, one way, no, it does not,
Oh.
Melinda. If I'm specifically in the aide calendar, the teacher calendar, or whatever, any updates I make here will not transfer to another calendar. But if I make a bunch of updates on here, then I could copy this calendar out to the teacher calendar. Okay. I'm sorry. My drink went down the wrong pipe. All right. So then if you want to check, because I'm sure most people have a kind of a default calendar they're starting with, like a school calendar they're basing everything off of. And I'm sure you know the number of days that everybody needs. So then what you can do is, first of all, this little count up here is awesome. It'll tell you the fiscal year, the calendar year, the fourth quarter, wherever you're at. So if I change this to September, now it's going to tell me the third quarter. Whereas if I go to October, now I'm getting fourth quarter. But you can put it in a custom date range and say, okay, my school year runs the 15th, August 15th through 5/24. Then if I hit enter, it gives me the custom date range and it tells me the total number of work days and holidays. So that way you can easily check and say, okay, good, I've got all my days on here. From there, there's also a report that you can run, and that's under reports, job calendar report. And you say, okay, I want to run this from 8/15 of 23 of 5/31 of 24. And I'll look at the aids. I will tell you, there's two different layouts. There's portrait and there's landscape. I really like the landscape because it puts everything on one page. But it doesn't line up super well. And we've asked this question to SSDT, and it doesn't sound like it's a fixable item because it's kind of hard to look at when things don't line up. It's just got to do with the number of weeks that are in each month. So while I like that it's all on one page, it's not always easy on the eyes. So if you do in portrait, a little bit easier to look at. You just have 2 pages worth. But you can go through here and check and make sure which days are holidays and work days and non-work days. And it'll give you a total for each month. Everybody good so far? Okay, the last thing I want to say about job calendars. If you come in here and you have just a slew of calendars like this, you can actually archive them. If you have some that you don't use anymore, just edit, check the archive box, and save it. That way, when you come in here to look at your calendars, you're not seeing all these really old, outdated calendars that aren't being used anymore. So, any final questions on job calendars? Just make sure.
Not seeing anything in the chat.
Okay. Just make sure you're keeping a list of what you've updated and what you haven't updated, so they're ready for the next year. Okay, now the fun stuff. New contracts. New contracts can be found under processing, new contracts. Oh, I thought I deleted all these. Hang on. Okay. There are 3 different ways that you can do new contract, that you can create new contracts. We'll go through each of them. So you can come in here, so you're in new contract maintenance, and you can click on copy. This will do 1 person at a time. So the only time I think this makes sense is, I don't really know when this makes sense. Maybe you forgot somebody for some reason. This one you're probably not going to use a lot, but you will put in the employee's name. Choose the compensation that you want to create the new contract on. For this conversation, you want new contract. And then you can put the contract start and stop date. And I hit create. And it basically pulls in everything that's already on that compensation. So nothing's been updated except for the start and stop dates. And that's because I put it in when I created it. Otherwise, you have to go through everything and update it. So if you come down here and say, all right, now he's going to be making 90. Once I put the new contract amount and obligation, I can come up here and click calculate, and it will give me a new per pay amount and a new unit amount. let me back up here for a minute. Make sure you do your calendars before you do new contract, because it does look at the calendar that the employee is on and pulls in the work days. And that's how it's able to calculate a unit amount. If you don't have calendars in there, it'll be a 0 here and you won't get a unit amount. Okay, so job calendars first, then new contract. And it looks at the calendar, the days that are on the calendar within these dates. So you can change anything else you need to on here. Maybe this person's changing calendar, you could change that. You'll want to update the label. The label is really important because when you are pulling people into future pay, the label is what shows up, and you can easily distinguish between an old compensation and a new compensation, because there will be a period of time in which you have multiple compensations out there on the same position in the early parts of August and maybe September. So if you update this to FY24, FY23-24, whatever you want to do, but I highly recommend using the label because it shows on future pay. You can also update anything on the position that you need. Well, not anything, but these fields of the position. So maybe this person, maybe you want to update this to teacher art. I don't know. If you want to be more specific on your description, maybe you need to change the pay group, building. If they're moving buildings, maybe this person's moving to a new building. Maybe they've got a new position code. Any of that can be updated. You can also update, if you're using the salary schedule fields, you can update all of those in here. You can also add a new pay account because maybe they're moving buildings and now they have a new pay account. You can easily click on this and put in the new pay account. I don't want to do that. I was just kidding. I don't want to. Okay. So that's how you can do one at a time. So now it's out here and it'll, until you are ready, it stays out here until you activate it. So if you decide later on he's not making 90,000, you can come in here and edit it and update it. I'm going to delete that because it's going to cause me problems later. All right, the second way is you can mass copy. So if I click on this mass copy compensation, I can come in here and say, okay, job status is active. I don't want anybody who's inactive or terminated, so I'm just going to leave this as active. I don't know why you would include archive employees or archive compensations, but you could if you wanted to. You can include compensations active as of a specific date, or you can just select a pay group. So I want to do teachers. If I put in I can put in the contract start and stop dates, and then I can build them. And then they are all over here in my new contract maintenance. So if I go in here, and then I can edit each one individually. You can see it updated my compensation start and stop dates, but again, that's the only thing that got updated. So I would still need to come in here and update all of my information. So that's option number 2. Okay, the third option, and my personal favorite, is you can import new contracts. And we actually have the template and the guide and the report and everything that we can send to you, but most districts used this last year. So if you don't already have the report I'm about to talk about, let us know and we can load it. There is a report in the report manager. Will it mass copy EMIS only? No, because your EMIS, probably not. The EMIS only screens or compensations are generally non-contract. And so it won't, this is for contracts only, not non-contracts. We'll talk about non-contracts later in the training. So under reports report manager, we have a report that has been created. It's called new contract by pay group. If you do not have this and you want to utilize this, let us know and we can load it or send it to you and you can load it. But the way this was designed, it creates an Excel file and you can pick your pay group. So maybe I always did one pay group at a time. It'll pull out all of the information that's in there. So I'm going to do pay group 4 and I'm going to generate this. Maybe, where'd it go? Oh, well, that's funny. It didn't open anything. Hang on. Mm-mm. Yes, I remember. Hang on, this demo file is, or this demo instance is going to
I
kill
was
me.
just gonna say, whenever you're using the demos,
Oh, yeah.
I always, yeah, a lot of times odd things happen because it's all scrambled data and it's all weird.
Yep. And I know exactly what it is. It's because it's programmed to only pull in a fiscal year to date of greater than 0. So I tell you what,
Uh-huh.
just ignore what I'm doing right now. Don't pay attention.
It's
This doesn't
fine.
apply to you.
I had a lot of trouble, trouble preparing for the budgeting in the demo instance. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no data.
Yeah.
Anyway, the demo can be weird.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what it should look like. So for your all's sake, this report, you would go into your report manager, click on the download button, go to your query options and put in your pay groups. And you can do more than one pay group separated by a comma and no space if you wanted to pull in more than one. And this is what it generates. It pulls out everything that is already in the system, and then you can do the updates via a spreadsheet rather than one at a time, you know, clicking on, once you have them in here, clicking on each one and manually updating each one. In this case, you're just going down a spreadsheet. So what you'll do, so it pulls out all of this information, and we have a guide. Let me see if I can find it and pull it over. I only have a gazillion things open. So we have this little guide that we can send you, and it tells you some specifics about each column. So column E should be a 4. So if we go back and look at column E, yours, you probably won't see legacy here. It'll probably say contract, but it actually needs to be a 4. Why? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but the system reads 4 as new contract when you upload it. So then you could just copy it all the way down because everybody's going to be a 4. And then looking back at the column F is the compensation label that we've talked about. So right now, yeah, we've got this crazy stuff in here. So if I want this to say FY24, because I want my new label to say FY24, so I can easily pick it out from the old compensations when I'm doing future pay. And so obviously there's more like column F, column R, equal pays, it needs to say Y. Rather than true, it pulls out true, it needs to be a Y. So those are just a few little, it just pulls out weird information. And so that's why we have this little guide that tells you what it needs to be. And then it also said you got to delete this last column. To be fair, probably shouldn't even have this column pulled on the report, but it's on there and I don't want to go back and change everybody's report. So we'll delete that one. And then you just go through here and you update it. So you say, okay, and some of the stuff. I will say sometimes this will pull contracts of people that you don't want it to pull. So sometimes you do have to clean it up a little bit and delete some people that it pulled. Because if they've left you, it'll probably pull them into this report. Because you can see we've got some really crazy dates in here. But this column I and J are your contract start and stop dates. So you'll want to update that. And so let's talk about contract start and stop dates. Most of you know by now, it needs to be a date that falls within the initial period in which they're going to be paid. The date on the contract. But you also got to be careful that you don't overlap within the prior contract. So generally for like your teachers, you're just going to, everybody's different. So we're going to say 8/15/23 to normally what we do is a whole year. So you end it the day before in the next year. That's generally, and same thing with your everybody. You generally need a whole year's worth if you're paying them over 12 months. Otherwise it won't pull them into the payroll. Okay, you could actually, if you are dealing with salary people, you do not have to fill in this column, because if you leave this blank, this unit amount, it will actually populate that just by uploading the contract amount. So if I put in here, these are really weird numbers. When I upload $1,000, it will look at this person's calendar and determine what the unit amount is, and same with the pay per period. However, if you're also utilizing this spreadsheet to maybe check and make sure you have everybody correct, you can put formulas in here. So you can say, okay, the pay per period is, this divided by, 24, 26, whatever it is. And it will still upload the spreadsheet. So you can put formulas in here. Same thing with unit amount. If you know how many days it should be, so you can populate that, but you do not have to. So for this, I'm going to leave these blank just so you can see that happen. All right. Your pays and contract, these are all over the place. I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to delete some of this. Okay. So the demo instance is a bi-weekly payroll, so they've got 26 pays. So we're going to leave 26 in here. But you do want to pay attention to this because if you had somebody start mid-year and they only had like 18 pays, you're going to want to make sure you update this to be 26 and not, 28. Did I say 28? 18. All right, so you could also update their hours in a day if you need to, their salary information. So if you are utilizing those salary schedule fields on the compensation screen, you can update that in here as well. So bump everybody up a step if they're moving columns, whatever you need to, hours in a day. You can update all of that. Okay. So the guide kind of tells you make all your changes. X and Y do not need to be updated. That's the calendar start and stop dates. You do need to save it as a CSV file before you can upload it. And then it has instructions for actually importing this into new contracts. So what you'll do, I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to call it's the CSV comma delimited. I know there's a few other ones, but it's the comma delimited is the one you want. Save that. Oh, I missed a step. Hang on. Go figure. So this header is not exactly what we need to import it. So what we've done is we have what we call a little template. And basically what you do is you take that template and you copy the headers and you paste it. The key here, all right, I don't think that's right. We have this report, the new contract by pay group report, laid out so all the columns are in the exact same spot as this template. So this new contract import template. So that way it's easy to copy and paste this header onto this report. If you go changing, like if you run your new contract by pay group report and then you start adding a bunch of columns or changing them up, it will impact your ability to copy and paste the headers. So just be mindful of that. Because if these headers aren't right, it will not upload. So what you could do is take the template, copy the headers onto your report, and that way if you need to make adjustments, maybe you don't like that the contract amount and obligation is clear down here, and maybe you want to move them closer to say their name. Nothing ever just goes smoothly, does it? There we go. Then you can move things around and you still have your headers in place. Okay. So once you have your headers on there, you have everything updated and you're ready to import it. You go to we're still in processing and new contracts. You want import new contracts. You choose your CSV file. You do not have to put a contract start date as long as you had it on your file. And then you hit import, cross your fingers and hit import. And it tells you how many loaded, how many errors, and total records. It will tell you, it will give you a report of the errors. Oh, I already created a new file for her. That's why. So once you've done that, now they're in new contract maintenance. So at this point, you can still make edits to it. Maybe somebody changes, you get those last minute column changes for your teachers, and maybe this person is moving. Wow, I hope I don't ever make that little money in a year. So then you can update it, calculate, and save it. So until you activate these are still, you could delete, maybe you messed it all up and you want to delete it all. Select them all, you hit delete. Are you all with me so far?
Yep.
Okay.
Nothing else in the
Following.
chat.
Yes.
Okay. Let me look at my notes. Oh, let me show you this. Remember, I did not have a unit amount and I did not have a pay per period amount on my file when I uploaded it. I left those two columns empty. So you can see that when it imported in a new contract, because I had the work days, because I already had my calendars updated, it went ahead and updated my unit amount, and it also gave me a pay per period. So you do not have to have those two columns populated on your spreadsheet if you don't want to, but you can.
That's a nice time saver.
Yeah, some people, I know I specifically used it for balancing, so I would have used that spreadsheet to say, okay, is my pay per period what my own spreadsheet says? Because I had a spreadsheet with all of it calculated. So, but it's, we're all unique. We all do our own thing. So just know that that's there. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, making sure I'm covering everything. Okay. So once you have everything in here, there's a couple of different reports that you can run. So if you go to reports, new contract report, you can run this report. You can run it by a contract start date or an appointment type. I personally would probably run it by, by pay group. And so I only did one pay group, but if you had multiple pay groups in there, I do wish that all these archived weren't hanging out here driving me crazy. Where's pay group 4? There we go. So I only want to run my new contract report for pay group 4. I don't want to look at anybody else. I just want to be able to focus on this pay group. And then I can generate that. And you get a nice report with all the information, so you can go down and check to make sure everything looks good. You can check your obligation, your pay per period, the unit amount, pays in contract, all of that stuff. So we had an issue last year where if you changed somebody's pay group in new contract, it would not pull into the reports by their new pay group. It still used their old pay group, and that has been corrected. They fixed that this year. So that's one report. If you go to reports and then the report manager, there are two others. So there is this SSDT new contract summary. And this one's really nice too. kind of more condensed, but a lot of the information that you're going to want to check. So you can just go right through here, pays and contract. Okay, everybody's at 26. Because if I see anybody with 18 or 22 or anything weird like that, I want to fix that. Make sure that stretch pay box is checked. Sure, most of you have come into a situation where somebody doesn't pull into payroll or they pull in and it's a really weird amount. It's usually the stretch pay box isn't checked. Then there's also the new contract payroll accounts. So you can run that to see everybody's contract, or I'm sorry, payroll accounts. So this is what's currently on file, unless you, while you were in new contract, updated their payroll account down here. If you update it down here, when you run the new contract payroll account, it'll pull in that new payroll account. Everybody good so far? Okay. Yeah, you can copy and paste into, so this is your template, and you can copy and paste into here. Just make sure you have to have the employee ID on here, so make sure that the employee ID lines up with the correct name and everything. So yeah, you can copy and paste, just use caution and making sure that you're pasting into the correct columns and whatnot. Absolutely. Okay, so once you have all of your contracts, let me skip that part. I'm going to come back to that. Let's do salary notices because that would be your next step. So you have everybody in here. In order to use the salary notices from the system, they have to be a new contract. I guess that's not entirely true. You can actually do it from the compensation screen, but nobody's going to have the compensation screen set up before they need to actually send out salary notices. So the first step to use the salary notices is doing your new contracts. So first, let's talk about setup. So here's your it's in new contracts. So we're in processing new contracts, and then here's your salary notice tab. If you want to be able to email them, there's some setup in the background. Now this is a demo, it's not set up, but we have a guide, and I actually sent this out earlier this year, I think. I will send it again as part of the update to this meeting. But you need to do a couple of things in the background in order to be able to email. So you've got to go to system configuration, okay, and then salary notice configuration, and then you have to, from there, enter the email address where it's coming from, so the payroll person, treasurer, whoever. The subject, it pulls in, so it'll say salary notice for, and then it pulls in their position description and the compensation label. And this is the default body. You can change these things. And then you can send it to all email addresses on file. And then you can exclude the employee number. If you are a district that still utilizes the social security number as the employee number, you will want to do this because you do not want to email a social security number. Okay, so that's important. If you're utilizing, if you have a normal, 4 letter and 6-digit employee number, you don't necessarily have to exclude it. But if you are still using the social security number, make sure you check this box. And then you can choose a default salary notice. I have found, of all the districts that I've created the custom salary notices for, everybody has more than one, so I'm not sure that selecting a default one is super necessary, but you can do that. So let's review that. It's system configuration. And then you should have salary notice configuration, and you'll click the little edit guy. And you can say, okay, this is coming from and then these are defaulted to say these things. Maybe you just wanted to say salary notice for, fiscal year 24 or whatever. And maybe in the body you want to say attach this message, blah, blah, blah. If you have any questions, please contact so-and-so. You could add that on here. Send the notification to all addresses. So that is, if you have multiple, if you have an email address, another email address, it'll send to all of them. If it's the same email address twice, it'll still only go one time. But yes, exclude employee number from emailed salary notices. Again, very, very important if you're still using the socials. And then you can select your default salary notice. You can see I have a bazillion in here from my testing. So then you could save that. So that is the process that you need to go through in order to be able to email. Now, you'll notice in my lovely demo here, my email notice is still going to be grayed out, and that's because it's a demo and we don't have the emailing set up. So that's your first step. There is, let's see, do I have it? There is a generic salary notice that SSDT created. Now, it's very similar to this with the exception of it doesn't have a letterhead. You can utilize that one, or if you want it to say something special, or if you want it on a letterhead, let us know. Put in a ticket requesting a custom salary notice. You'll need to send us a copy of what you want it to look like. And if you have multiples for certified, classified administrators, we'll need all of them. And also, if you want it on letterhead, please send that letterhead as a Word document. Now, I've gotten a couple of requests for salary notices, and I get it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that because some of your salary notices are awesome and very elaborate, and it's more information than we can pull in. We are limited on the information that can pull into a salary notice. There's a lot of it. It's been updated a lot. But so I saw one that had insurance costs and all of this, and I'm like, this is awesome, but this is way more technological advance than we are. So, but as somebody would say who's not on the call, she'd like, I'm shooting for the stars here. And if you don't ask, you don't know. So just send it to us and we'll let you know what we can and can't do.
Yeah, they just recently added the paper period, right,
Yep.
Tanya?
Yep, the paper period, there was like 3 new items. So I had several districts use the paper period, and so I just updated those this week. But yeah, there is actually on the SSDT wiki page, if you were curious, click on salary notices here. This is a list of what we can pull in. Now we can type it to say, specific things. So if everything's going to be the same, but if you needed it to pull in what's specific to that employee, this is what we're limited to. This list. And this was a much shorter list when we started this whole thing. So they are,
Yeah.
if there is something you want, let us know and we'll send it to them. But this late in the game, I'm not sure we'll get it for this year, but maybe for next year. So. Okay, so that's salary notices. We can create custom ones. How to set up the email. You can have multiple templates, so you can have multiples in there. You'll see here, are there sample notices available? So there is. Let me see if I've got that saved. Hang on. Well, here, I'll show you some of the ones that I've created, okay? So I just showed you, this is kind of the generic SSDT one. It pulls in, this right here is pulled in based upon the employee. Same thing with the name and address. The position is pulled in. This is pulled in from the salary notice. The amount. I don't love this date. This pulls in the compensation start date. From what I've seen from most of the districts, this is like maybe their first pay date. So a lot of those were just hard, manually keying in. So yeah, let's look at a couple of them. So you're ready to do your salary notices, and you don't have to email them. If you just want to generate this PDF file and send it, unless it's a bad one, and send it, you can. Like, you can download this, print it, mail them, if that's what you would rather do, if you don't want to email. So you're in here. This is the statement date. So this is just the date that, it's sending, basically. You can sort it however you want. So if you are going to be printing these, so I had a question a while ago. Well, how do I keep a copy of it for the auditors? Well, you generate this report and you print it out and put it in the employee folders. At least that's what I would do. But that was a question that was asked. This is the school year, so this is what's pulling in right here. Okay. The contract start date is important if you want to only send salary notices based upon a contract start date. So maybe you only want to send people that have a contract start date of 7/1. You could put that in there. If you're only wanting to do classified or certified, you can pick those. If you want to, maybe you just want to send it to one person. I don't know, maybe you have 3 people, whatever. You can, pick your people from here and add them, and then it'll only create reports for those specific people. If you want to include the district information on the salary notice, you'll check this box, and then the information pops up here, down here, so just verify it's correct. And then let's see. So this is a classified salary notice that I created that pulls in, rather than pulling in the salary like this one does, it's going to pull in the unit amount. So this is, obviously it's New Richmond's. This address right here, that pulled in because I checked this box. If I uncheck that box and generate this, that comes off. And in this case, they probably don't want it because it's on their letterhead. Okay, so that's the difference between those two. And so this specific one is pulling in this that comes from this right here, this school year. And then this is the unit amount that is pulling from new contract maintenance. So if we look at, So here it says unit amount. I know this one's really weird because it goes out, multiple digits. That if you only have 2 digits in here, obviously it's only going to put 2 digits right here. So that's what theirs looks like.
Tanya, I've got a question.
Yep.
I noticed a couple of them have like board president signature and treasurer signature on there, but they're not signed. Or do we have the ability to add that signature on there
So
on the template?
I will not say without a shadow of a doubt that we can do it, but I did have success on this one right here when I did that. And I will tell you, sometimes these salary notices take me hours, and sometimes I can get them done in, a matter of an hour or two. They're very finicky. So here's one where I was able to copy in the signatures. Now, some districts have totally removed this section altogether. Like, here's one that they do not have a signature, they just have a name. This is a good one. So this is a district that is pulling in the column and the step. And so, and I have found that this isn't true for everybody, but a lot of districts, their teacher salary schedule, it's like a 1 to 5. So you got bachelor's plus 150, master's 15, and master's 30, or what I had and what I've seen. So rather, because the system doesn't say BA 15, MA, it says column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had a nice little like guide down here to say, okay, column codes. 1 is this, 2 is this, whatever. So that was something I hadn't seen before, but a great idea. So those are some of the examples of what, like, you can see that, they all look very different. So I hope that helps. I think that was Anita that asked that question. So once you've run your report, and I would highly recommend going through it and just double checking it. I know you've checked your new contract maintenance, and you're probably at this point feel comfortable with everything that's in there, but it doesn't hurt just to scroll through this and make sure that everything, looks good, is lined up well. Because this one, you can see that it's awful. The letterhead's only on the first one. Then you start getting page 3 on page 2. This was one of my first ones. It's a mess. But once you're good, you run your report, you're good with it, then you could email the salary notices. Now, obviously, I can't show you what that looks like because it's a demo. So it's really, the salary notices, they're super easy. Creating the templates is kind of not fun all the time. But as far as utilizing it, super easy. Any questions so far? So I had a great question asked to me. Well, how do I determine who gets a contract and who gets a salary notice? Well, that's something you at the district are just going to have to kind of figure out. I know it's not easy because in here to send a salary notice, unless you're going to type in each person you want to send it to, you're kind of have to send it to everybody. I know generally speaking, if you get an actual contract, you're not getting a salary notice. I don't have an easy button for that. I'm sorry. Any questions before I move on? I think I covered everything on salary notices. I will show you this. So the salary notices go into like the templates that we create for you. they're under reports and then the report manager. And you see all of these, if I just put new contract here, you're going to see these are all of the ones that I've been working on. So if you want to make a change to it, you can actually download it by clicking on this download definition button, and it will open up the Word document, and you'll see how crazy it looks. So all of the things that automatically get pulled in, like the date, the name, they're these merge fields. But if you have something else that you wanted to update, so maybe you had like the pay date on here, like, you know, first pay is whatever. If you needed to update that, then what you would do is come in here and, I don't know, first pay is 9/1/23. I'm just putting something in here. So then if I save it, then, so I've saved it to my files. I come back in here. Okay, sorry, I couldn't remember. Then I come in here and I find that template. So it was this one right here. And if I click this little edit guy right here, I can select my new form. That's the one I just downloaded and updated and saved. So I'm going to select it, open it, I'm going to save. So now, if I go back into new contracts and I select that one, fingers crossed, haven't actually tested this out. There we go. So now I've got my first pay on there. So that's how you can, like, if you need to edit something, like I said, I have a couple of districts that, you know, they have a specific date on there that we had to manually key in. That's how you would update that date for next year. Obviously, you probably have it set up for this year and everything's good, but for next year, you could come in here and update it and re-upload it. Okay. So once you're done with your salary notices, then you're ready to activate. So all you do, you select who you want to activate. Maybe it's everybody, maybe it's certain pay groups. So if you had, you know, pay groups in here, I've only got one in here right now, but if you had multiples, you could select your pay group. And you then check this box. So they're all highlighted, and then you would click on activate. So I'm only going to do one because I don't want to mess all my demo up. So let's just say this person. When you click on the activate button, oh, you know what? Let's not do that person. Let's do this one. Okay. It's going to ask you, transfer primary compensation flag to new compensations. The box is defaulted to check. Leave that checked. The primary compensation has nothing to do with how you process payroll. The only thing the primary compensation flag does is it helps sometimes when we create reports. So sometimes when we're trying to create reports for you guys and you want current year contract amounts, if that primary compensation flag is on, we can easily pull in the correct compensation rather than it pulling in an old one or something. So leave that checked. And then you're going to say activate. And so that was Malone that we just did. So now if I come out here, so now I can see his fiscal year 24 compensation is out here. Now, a couple of things. When you activate the new contract, and we activated this with a compensation start date of 5/15. I did not know this until last year. It will automatically update the compensation stop date of the old compensation to be the day before. So if for some reason your old compensation had a stop date of, say, 8/15, and when you activated the new contract, you said, okay, my start date's 8/15, it will update the stop date on the old compensation to be 8/14 of 23. I did not know that. I had a district that activated and it did that. And then it caused problems because they weren't done paying them. And because of the way that their pay dates or their payroll beginning and ending dates lined up, it didn't want to pull in the new compensations. So if that happens and you're like, wait a minute, I need my compensation stop date to be 8/15 because maybe your dates are 8/15 to 8/30. We can do a mass change to update your stop date. Did that make a lick of sense to anybody? I know that one's a head scratcher.
We can help you out when you get there.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so the other thing that I want to mention here, and again, something I learned last year and kind of blew my mind. Those of you that were around in Classic, I personally, I never activated my new contracts until my old contracts were paid out. Okay, that was kind of the unwritten rule. You just waited until the older one was paid out and then you activated. Well, what I have found is that, I'm going to try to explain this. If you activate in advance, it can actually help you. So let me show you some stuff. So I have Felicia in here who she has one pay left on this contract, okay? So she's got a stop date of the 15th. So she's got one pay left. She's only been paid 25 of 26. Well, her new compensation for fiscal year 24, she actually started working on August 15th. Okay, so August 15th was her first work day on this new compensation. Well, my initial dates, so say my payroll, I have a payroll for 8/31, okay? And my start and stop dates are 8/15 to 8/31, okay? Well, she worked, call it, I don't know, 10 days within this time frame on her new contract. She doesn't have any work days on her old contract because that was done, back in May. If you activate that new contract before your payroll that includes their first day worked. I think I said that right. So if you activate before your payroll that includes the first day worked, it will actually pick up those work days and the accrued amount for that new contract. So let me show you this. This is what the pay report looks like. So I already initialized this payroll for 8/15 to 8/31. And I had already activated her new compensation. So you can see here, this is her last pay on that old compensation. Okay, so that's what she's getting paid. Yes, it's a very small amount because they had really weird contract amounts in there. Then it's got her new contract earnings. Okay, so you can see this is what she's earned on her new contract. She's not getting paid any of it. There's nothing over here in gross, but it's capturing her accrued amount. So these are technically accrued wages. Go back here for a minute. So if we look at, so this is her new contract. You can see there's no work days, there's no accrued wages, she's not been paid anything. And then her current contract that I'm getting ready to pay out, so this is going to be her last pay. You know, she's got one pay left. Okay, she's got 26, she's only been paid 25. So when I post this payroll, so I'm going to post the payroll that includes her last pay on this compensation, but it also was showing earnings on that new contract. So now if I come in here and I look at her FY23, now she's been paid 26 pays out of 26. Okay, so she's been paid in full there. And if I look at her new compensation, she has accrued wages. She's not been paid. And it picked up her 13 work days that were on her calendar between August 15th and August 31st. What's keeping the new compensation from being pulled in? Great question. The system will not pay two contract compensations on one position. So because she's already been paid on that old one, and this down here is the real kicker, she's got a contract extension down here. So when I did this new contract, I was extending her old contract. So it knows not to pull this one in until the old one's paid off. So I did not know the system was this smart. I was pretty impressed by that. Now, as great as that all is, if you have new hires that you put in, that's a whole nother ball game. Whole nother ball game, because they do not have a prior compensation. So if you were to put them in with these exact same dates before you run that 831 payroll, it's going to pull them in. So I have one district that what they do, and I won't get too in the weeds here, but they put their new hires in their own unique pay group for that first payroll of the new contract. So that way they can use a longer initial period for that group, and then they move them to their regular pay group. If any of you have questions about that, we can talk later, but I'm not going to go in the weeds there. So this is really the kick. What does it right here is because this contract extension is on here, it knows not to pull in the old one, or not to pull in the new one until the old one's paid off.
But
And
it's really nice that you don't have to add those days, the
Oh my
contract
gosh.
days worked. Yeah.
Yes, because no, you do not manually put that in there. That is part of the new contract. So when you automatically pull in new contract, it automatically does this. Yeah, to not have to fix these days worked at the end of the year. Plus it keeps your accrued wages correct. I personally never got too hung up on the accrued wages. But you know, it's something that some people look at. But it's the days worked, making sure that the days, we all know with STRS, as long as they're correct by the end of the year, we're all good. But your SERS people, those are reported on a per pay basis. So if you didn't report those 13 days, you somehow need to go in and be able to fix that with SERS. Otherwise, they're getting shorted on days. So, any questions about that? Okay. Two more things to go over. Well, really one more thing to go over quickly. Non-contracts. So there is a way to, so there's under reports and report manager. And there is the SSDT non-contract compensation mass load extract. If you have non-contracts, which everybody does, if you want it, I haven't quite put my finger on why you would do this, but if you wanted to create new non-contracts for everybody for the new school year, you can run this report. It pulls out an Excel file, and then you could update this with whatever you wanted to update it with, maybe the unit amount. Then you could mass load it back in. So maybe I wanted to change, add a new contract for Pete here and make the unit amount 100 because, they changed the rate there. You could do that, and then you just save this as a CSV. Okay, so you would file, save as, comma delimited, and you're going to save it. And then you would upload it under utilities mass load, and then it would be a compensation. Again, not sure why, if you're utilizing non-contract, the beauty of the new non-contract is that you don't have to update it every year. So I'm not sure if that's something that you want to do. Reach out to us and we'll walk you through it, but I don't think we have a lot of people doing that, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. But we do have a lot of scenarios where you're using non-contract for substitutes and those rates change. So maybe you just want to change the rates. Maybe you're not concerned about anything else, but you want to change the rates because, now your sub custodians are getting paid $16 an hour rather than 15. So if you go to core compensation and then click on non-contract compensation, so you can see here, I don't have the unit amount. So I'm going to add the unit amount to my grid here. Let's see, the unit amount isn't on the position, so I'm going to hide that for a minute. It's on the compensation, and I want unit amount. So I'm going to close that. And then because it's crazy, it goes all the way back to all compensations, and I got to click on non-contract. So now I can say, okay, show me anybody who is making $90. So now I've got my grid filtered, and maybe I want to change this to 100. Well, I can use mass change to do that. So if I click on mass change, if you do not have this definition, we can load it, but it's unit amount. So the property is unit amount. This is going to be my new amount. So I'm going to make this 100. So then I click on execution mode, and it says I've got 10 here, it's going to change. So then I'm going to submit it. Now you can see my grid went away, and that's because nobody equals 90 anymore. Now they equal 100. Well, of course, now I have a lot that equal 100. But if you just need to change the rate from the non-contracts, that's probably an easier solution. So then you just kind of go through, and if you have multiples you need to change, you just keep going through here and updating them one at a time. Does that make sense? That's how I would update that. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm just not sure what on a non-contract, why you'd want to upload a new one. But that's just me. If you've got a good reason, awesome. Okay, so that is all of my notes. Are there any outstanding questions? If you want me to review anything else? Rhonda, Sandra, did I miss anything?
Did you catch Lori Wood's last question about, do you manually put the contract extension in?
Oh, no. So when you are in new contracts, we did talk about it, but I'll talk about it again. when you activate this, that is what will update that contract. That's what puts that contract extension on there. I don't want to do that person. Let's see. Roads. So if I activate her, so there's that contract extension.
Mm-hmm.
So it knows
So,
that I was extending that FY23 contract.
so just by the act of activating the contract, it changes the verbiage that says contract extension.
Because it was ran through new contract. Now, if I
Mhm.
came in here and manually created her new contract for next year, I would have to put that in there if I wanted that to be true. So it only
Okay.
works if you're processing through new contracts.
Mm-hmm. And then for creating salary notices, you would need to do those salary notices before you activate those contracts, right?
Yep, that is true.
Okay.
You can, so from the compensation screen, I can do a salary notice from here. But then you're doing one person at a time. Yeah, that's a big no thank you. Um, but if you forgot somebody or maybe somebody wants, I don't know, whatever reason, you can do it from there. But if you want to do it in bulk, then do it from new contracts before you activate.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I will send you all a slew of documents. I will send um the I will resend the salary notice setup in case you want to email it. I'll send here's another guide of how to create it's not on that screen, how to create the salary notices from the system. I will send the new contracts. I'll go ahead and send the instructions along with the template, and I'll send we call it the JSON file. And this tells you how to import that JSON file into your report manager if you don't already have it. A lot of you already have it, and some of you have special ones that Rhonda or I have kind of manipulated for you. Some people added the addresses because you were using a mail merge. So, if you already have it, you don't need to re-upload it. But I'll send that. I'll send the job calendar somewhere on here. We have the job calendar. We're here. How to update the job calendars. We'll send that guide out. Those are the new contract instructions I'll send out. There is, and I meant to show you all this and I got sidetracked and I didn't. SSDT does have a new contract checklist. I have not created that into our own, HTC checklist. But it is out here. And so that's just on, if you go to our website under finance, state software redesign, SSDT, USPSR, and then it's under the appendix, and then checklist, and then new contract checklist. You can see it's pretty not super detailed or long. Job calendars, and then how to do the various ways to do a new contract, and then the various reports that are out there. So that is there. Okay, well, it is 10:30, so I've kept you all captive long enough. So if you guys have any questions, if you want those custom salary notices, please get them into us so we can start working on them. All right, you guys, we've recorded this, we'll put it on our website, and I'll share the password with you all. All right, have a great day, everybody.